Well, all right. How y'all doing out there? Listen, I'm Dr. Anthony D. Burns here at Man2Man. We're here for another episode today, and I'm really excited to be with you today. We had a little technical difficulty, but we worked out the bug. And so, listen, thanks for joining us and tuning back in. And so I was thinking about as we address men and men issues, and we'll have a broader platform as we go forth. I thought about, what about a car of the week? Actually, a friend of mine said, what about a car of the week? And so I was thinking about the 2021 Lincoln Continental. In the last one, they're talking about not making sedans anymore. And so Ford Lincoln rolled off the 2021 Continental with stagecoach doors. Now, I want to see if that's true, if they put some stagecoach on it. I told my wife I'm going to have to add that one to my collection. So listen, if you're out there watching, what's your favorite car? What car is your favorite car? And we're going to do a car of the week. And so type in the comments there your favorite vehicle. And let's look at some cars as we go through. Listen, this week we got another exciting show for you. I have, backed by popular demand with us, Terrence Ray. Terrence Ray, say hello to our audience this morning.
Hello, audience. Terrence Ray. Yes, how you doing? How you doing, Dr. Burns? How you doing?
I'm doing awesome today. Actually, I'm doing awesome today. I'm really excited about our future. I'm excited about the things that we're going to be doing in the community, and I'm really excited about this nurturing fathers and the impact that it's going to have in the lives of people. Now, when we talk about nurturing fathers, I was listening to CNN this morning, and they were talking about how this COVID is impacting the mental health of people, not just those who are getting it and losing loved ones, but the after effect that they have. And they even said that they had evidence that it was contributing to Alzheimer's or dementia. And so when we talk about the mental health that people are dealing with, this stress of this COVID, what are your thoughts when you talk about our community? Our community is being hit the hardest. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think when you think about all of the factors or all of the ways that this pandemic has impacted us from an economic standpoint, where jobs have been lost, folks can't pay rent. I mean, and not to mention the what's it called, where you have to stay in the house, man. So all of those issues, kids are in the house because schools aren't opened, and it can only mess with you mentally, man.
Yeah, people are working at the house. Teachers are working at the house. And I was just telling my wife, I'm getting cabin fever. We ain't been nowhere this year, and I'm getting cabin fever. I told her we're going to have to buy us an RV or rent an RV and just drive until run out of gas and fill it up and drive back home. So
just to get away from the house.
Yeah, just to get away from the house, And so last week we left off talking about fathers and daughters, and I expressed that I don't have daughters, but I have granddaughters, and they are very impactful in my life. And I say they just run me. I have a 4-month-old, and I don't know how she knows. My wife can have her, and she can sit down, and she just is sweet. My son, her uncle can have her, and she can just sit down, just as sweet. But when I have her, she got me up walking the floor, and she trying to talk to me and looking around. I said, well, how she know the difference?
They know the difference, man. Those girls are something else. And then that father-daughter relationship, when the proper amount of bonding takes place, when you spend that quality time, with your daughter, man, there's a bond that's just incredible, because you end up being her, the image of a man for her, man. So.
Yeah. Now, I want to read some statistics to you. We want to talk about the how powerful that impact is. One, in the father-child life, but more so in the father-daughter life. So listen at these statistics. They said 32 times that with a father in a child's life, he or she is 32 times more likely to run away. He or she is 5 times more likely to commit suicide. He or she is 9 times more likely to drop out of high school, 2.5 times more likely to become a teenage parent, 37% more likely to abuse drugs, 2 times more likely to live in poverty, and 2 times more likely to commit a crime. Now
And that's in the absence of a father.
that's in the absence of
Yeah.
a father.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that now, when we talk about boys and boys getting involved in some of those things, we not that we expect it from them, but we kind of,
Yeah, you do kind of expect it from the boys, unfortunately.
but for girls,
Right.
why is that so important? Because we live in a society now where women are being elevated, rightfully so. I didn't realize it was only 100 years ago before a woman was able to vote.
Exactly.
And so we're
now we have the first
African American
female
yes,
vice president.
that's exciting.
Yes,
and so we're in a culture where women can do what men do. Why is it important to protect and nurture a daughter on the level of the statistics that happens when it comes to not having a father present?
I think for me, again, I want to go back to setting the stage, if you will, for expectations. You are the first image of a man, or what a man is supposed to see, and you are in fact providing examples for your daughter. So it's good to be consistent with that, and and for her when she is preparing herself to go out in the world. Man.
Okay. And so I've heard statistics that says that daughters marry their fathers. And so when you say the father is the first male image that she sees, in most cases, whether he's abusive, whether he's, absent or whatever the case may be, in many cases, that's who she married. Exactly. Why do you think that is?
My daughter is 25. My oldest is 25, and we were talking one day about growing up, and she mentioned, she was like, and just imagine if your daughter tells you this. She's like, Dad, you were my Superman when I was growing up. You could do, there was nothing I didn't think you could do. And I'm like, wow, that's, when you think about that big of an image, that large of an image that you have with your child, man, that is, that's enough to make you swell up and, want to continue to be Superman for them. So, and so that's why I think it's imperative for fathers or men or the father of the daughter to be consistent in their lives.
Okay. And that is a very tall
Superman,
image to live up to.
Yes, yeah.
And I can certainly see that. And that would actually lead us into the second set of statistics when it says that children with involved, responsible, and committed fathers in their lives are more ambitious, they're more less susceptible to peer pressure, they're more competent, they're more self-reliant, and they're more confident when it comes to interaction with adults.
And I think it's important to add to that as well that, if you have both parents, because there are roles for mother and father in there. And so if you have fathers providing all of those things and mothers providing what mothers provide, you have a well-balanced child for the most part. They're better equipped to deal with the challenges that they are inevitably going to face out there in the world.
And so each parent plays a different part.
Exactly.
And it's just interesting as you say that, because it just happened to lead into my my third set of statistics, because it says here that fathers teach, and it's more saying it's going to say daughters too. It said father teach boys how to be men. Father teach daughters how to relate to men and feel deserving of respect and love. It says father has a unique style of playing with their children, which teaches self-respect, self-control, and helps them to modulate their behavior. Fathers emulate risk-taking and independence. Fathers promote respect and rules and discipline. And the presence of a father increase empathy and well-being. And so each person, the mother play a role that's part of the character and development of a child, and the father plays a role. And oftentimes when you talk about baby mama drama and things of that sort, where the mother may have an issue with the father and keeping the father from the child, or even feeding a child misinformation about the father,
Exactly.
that's to the detriment of the child.
Exactly. And when you think about all of those things that you listed, man, and how critical they are in the development of of a child, just imagine, and that's why we see some of that today. But just imagine those things not being there, and that's why you end up seeing the behavior that you see. Because all of those things that you listed, particularly the one thing I remember is the risk part. I remember trying to show my daughters how to swim and going on the edge of the pool and just standing back a little
Okay.
bit. And they're wobbling,
Right.
ready to take that risk. And then they ultimately do it because they trust you, man.
Okay.
And they'll jump off that edge for you.
Okay.
And it's that ability to, take that risk, man, that dads give them. And then mothers provide that empathy and that understanding for them. So you definitely need both mother and father actively involved.
Actively involved. Now, when you started the Fatherhood Initiative, some of the issues that was birthed, that causes the birth of the Fatherhood Initiative, was that men, or particularly black men, was not able to see their children, or they didn't know how to fight the system. We know in Wisconsin our laws is a little different in favor of certain activities that would keep the father away from the child. And so they had issues trying to get to see their child, or they went to prison, or had reentry issues. What are some of the things that you now the Fatherhood Initiative was started how many years ago?
2005, 2004, 5.
So 2004 or 5. What are some of the issues that you still see today that caused the Fatherhood Initiative to be birthed then?
Well, let me actually go back. I think it was actually started in celebration of fatherhood, and unfortunately, it morphed into this thing where it was, repairing damaged dads. Initially, I wanted to start it in celebrating and recognizing the role that fathers play, right alongside the role that mothers play, and ultimately celebrating the family. But again, it morphed into that thing where we were fixing damaged dads because we started focusing on those very things you mentioned, child support, deadbeat dads, and just looking at deficits as opposed to assets that fathers bring to the table. All of those things that you just listed, all of those assets. But some of the things I still see today are the whole child support issue, and I think that's a broader issue because in Wisconsin, I think the laws and the legislation that's written to deal with that financial obligation that fathers have it's just really so punitive, man.
Okay.
And I think that's just a challenge and a barrier to fathers.
Okay. Now, when we think about that, the challenge and the barriers that deal with fathers, our first thought question that we want to kind of mull over a little bit is the whole decision-making process. The decision-making process. How, as parents or fathers, how important is it for the parent to make better decisions, and how important is it that we develop better decision making when it comes to parenting our children?
I think that's it's generational. I think with that, I mean, because at the end of the day, you do better when you know better.
Okay, now speak a little bit more about the generational.
I think again, it's connected to doing better if you're knowing better. If you got, unfortunately, we're in an era where you have a lot of kids having kids or babies having babies, and if they weren't exposed to some consistency in their homes, and they're going to carry that over into how they rear their own children. So if you got 3 or 4 generations of babies raising babies, man, that's what you're going to end up with. So if or versus having some exposure to some positive decisions being made in the home.
Okay, now we're living in a different culture now where it's not always the case that our children having children is because they don't have the mother and father at home. And when you look at the new grandma and granddad now,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Akatune,
Grandma.
he has the comedy skit on that, and he
Yeah.
does an awesome job with that. When he talked about, how you call grandma, granddad, can you watch my babies? And granddad said, no, I'm going out this
I'm going
weekend.
right. Grandma and
So
grandpa in the club.
that gap when you talk about generationals, the reason that many of them are doing it now is not necessarily the same reason that they were doing it then, even though it almost appeared to have the same effect.
It's that, yeah, man. It's that societal thing, and historically, when the father was, in my opinion, literally removed from the home. We're still suffering. Speaking of generationally, we're still suffering from maybe 2 or 3 generations of the father being removed from the home. I often think about the movie Claudine, man. Remember the movie? Yeah,
Yes.
Claudine, yeah. So I know you remember that movie. And the movie Claudine, if you remember, man, James Earl
Jones,
Jones, I
yes.
think, yeah. He had to sneak in the house, or he had to leave the house when he. Well, you remember, I can't get it
Right.
actually, but he had to get out of the house, man, and that was consistent, and particularly in like public housing. You couldn't, the man couldn't be in the house if, you wanted to have the support and the resources that you were going to get from the government. He couldn't be there. So you had generations of that with no male image, no male role models in the house, and mothers raising kids, man, like
And,
alone,
and you
single
believe
mothers
that we're
raising kids.
still impacted by that today?
Definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
all right. And so when we talk about decision-making styles, I got a clip here that talks about being inactive versus being reactive versus being proactive. And I'm gonna tell you what they're saying. They're saying when it comes to being inactive, that's failing to make a choice or putting off decisions. When it comes to being reactive, they're saying that allowing others or things to make decisions for you. And then when it's talk about being proactive, it's talking about making decisions and assuming responsibility for the consequences. So now when we talk about the plight of the young family or the African American male that has children before they're married, or the whole scenario of younger people having children and not being married, how do active, reactive, or proactive play into the decisions for the fathers to be that father in that situation? Because they're not living together. In some cases they are, but the child is still impacted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does. And I think, like, as you mentioned them, I think when the first episode we did, we talked about, how there's no manual for this, man. And it's, you learn by experience and learn by the the mistakes that you made. And each one of those scenarios, they're all mixed in. You're gonna do a little bit of both, along the way. And I think everyone wants to reach a point where they're doing proactive things, but you don't get to that proactivity until you bump your head a few times, man,
All right, all right.
and end up making some mistakes.
Okay, and that kind of leads us into our second thing, which is life being desire-driven versus life being choice-driven. And I've learned over the years that life is choice-driven. It doesn't matter how much you desire to have the perfect family,
Right.
how much you desire to be in the wealthy or have your family right, or how much you desire to make amends with your children. Life is not desire driven. Life is choice driven. And so the sum total of the life that we live is based on the choices that we made.
Definitely.
And so in order for us to improve our lives, we have to be willing to improve our choices.
Exactly.
So when we talk about desire-driven versus choice-driven, how much of that do you see when you deal with the fathers within the context of the Fatherhood Initiative, or just the role that you play in the community as you work with different men or fathers?
And obviously, you see a lot of desire-driven choices initially. When they come through and they want to just provide, make sure their kids have everything they want, and as, for instance, as opposed to understanding the importance of quality time. You know, just when you're driven by the desire to have your kids like you and not understand the importance of providing discipline for them. You know, and when I say discipline, I don't mean
Take it
corporal
behind the
punishment.
woodshed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
But the discipline and understanding just how important that is. But we're all driven by desire at some point, you know, where we want to that desire in us to again have our friends, have our kids be happy or be our friends or agree with us, you know. But ultimately, you end up learning about or the difference between that desire-driven and choice-driven by making mistakes and then ultimately making the right choices.
okay, and so you feel like we're more desire-driven because of
Because we're human.
our need for our children to like us.
That's one.
You know, so we don't want to be the bad guy.
Right,
you know.
exactly.
And now I talked to, I think it was the last session we was in when I talked about how I would ask my mom, I would say, Mom, well, can I have this? And she would say, go ask your daddy.
Yeah, right. And get it off for me, right? Let him be the bad guy.
And
right.
so you're saying on the outside of that kind of context, when you don't get to see your children as much, that the impression that you want them to have is more of a loving or nurturing from the standpoint that you want to give them all you can give them.
Right, right.
And then that desire-driven
Exactly.
path is developed like that.
Yeah, and again, from experience, you learn that it's not always, you know, what you give them in terms of material things, and you know, as you do that thing called fatherhood, you know, more, and that's why it's so important to be consistent and be involved, responsible, and committed in the lives of your kids. You understand that it's not necessarily what you give them or what you buy them. You know, it's important for you to just be there.
Okay. All right. So listen, we just about out of time. In closing, let's talk about dedication. What is the benefits of family first? I know for me, in my role and responsibility, I made a commitment to my wife that when I'm home, I'll be home.
Right.
And sometimes it's challenging, but that means that when I'm home, I have to put my phone up. When I'm home, I have to,
Right.
you know, be attentive to whatever, you know, I forgot the guy's name, but he talked about bids. So a bid is when she's bidding for my attention.
Yeah, okay.
So when she says something that I don't just say, well, even if I do a grunt like they do the grunt, that is still, you know, you get points on that.
Yeah, well,
but
it's a response.
Yeah, but more
right.
importantly,
Right.
being able to, when she needs something or when she want to have a conversation, be able to, she can draw me in there.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
you know. And so we talk about family first. I did the same for my boys growing up. I tried to not allow my career choices to limit my availability to them. There were sometimes I came home with a suit on and my son would be out in the driveway shooting hoops, and I got my briefcase and stuff in my hand, and as soon as I get out of my truck, he would throw me the ball.
Right, right.
And
you
so
had to take your
and
shot,
I had to
man.
let my stuff hit the ground,
Exactly.
take the ball with the
Right,
suit on,
right, right.
and shoot it,
Right,
you know.
right.
So when we talk about family first, or being dedicated to our family, what would be your closing remarks when we talk about the importance of being dedicated to our families?
I mean, I actually envisioned that or saw that image. You know, you coming home with the suit on and playing ball with the kids, because it's like, you know, and that's so critically important, because you're showing them that, you know, I do have to go to work, but when I get here, you know, it's all about you, and it's all about everybody that's in this environment here at home. Home is home, and I leave work at work, and I come here. We gonna wrestle, we gonna play, and my focus is going to be on the people that are in this house. You know, I remember coming home, and my girls, both of my girls, they're a year and a day apart, so it's like, you know, at 4 and 5, they were like right there at the door waiting for me when I got home, man. And it, you know, they're trained to wait there for you because they know daddy's coming home, and they know they have some expectations about what's going to happen when he gets home. And we would take a walk every day when I got home, no matter how tired I was. We're going to take a walk, and we walked up by the railroad tracks, and it was just me and my girls, quality time, man.
That's powerful. I'm working on that now with my grandbaby. She and I have to get better like I was with my boys. I have to get better with that because I'll come home and when she's over at the house and she said, "Granddad, I want to go for a walk," and I don't always respond. You know, and my mother bought her a Mercedes G-Wagon.
Okay.
And so she'd come over and the weather be nice. She said, "Granddad, I want to get in the G-Wagon."
There you go.
You know, and so I'll have to stop what I'm doing and take her for a walk, or stop what I'm doing and let her pull the G-Wagon out the garage and drive. And I don't always. You know, it's just a little different with her and my sons. I don't know if it's because I'm out of practice, because my son's is 27 years old, but I find her making those same demands now and causing me to make those same kind of choices.
And it just as long as you're consistent with it, each time you do it with her, you know, it's valuable. It's like gold to her, man. She's gonna love that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we are out of time. I am so thankful for this time. It's been great. You know, it's been great.
Thank you.
I pray that those of you who have been tuning in to us in this conversation about fatherhood, that you've been enlightened, that you've been inspired to the degree that you're ready to use this instruction to move forward with your own lives. Life is choice-driven, and those are tough choices, sometimes depending on our modes and our moods. But as you listen to our dialogue, it's so critical for raising our children. And so, listen, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you got something that you could use. We have some exciting things coming up as we continue down this path. And so look forward to seeing you on next week on Man to Man with Dr. A.D. Burns. God bless.